Check out this country that's considered the dirtiest in the whole world, Bangladesh. Located in South Asia, this place is wrapped in a rich tapestry of history, influenced by long periods under British colonial rule, and deeply rooted in Hindu and Buddhist traditions, with a strong Islamic cultural presence. With a land area of about 148,000 square kilometers, Bangladesh faces huge challenges due to its extremely high population density, a reality highlighted by the 2020 census. Overpopulation means serious pressures on natural resources, a situation that mirrors in many ways the issues faced by its neighbor, India. In this context, the high concentration of people often leads to significant difficulties for the country. For adventurers keen on exploring Bangladesh, the country's tropical beaches and vibrant forests offer an unforgettable experience. However, the tropical climate brings a hefty dose of insects, which can be a challenge for visitors. It's essential to include a good insect repellent on your packing list. Dhaka, the capital, isn't just the most developed city in terms of quality of life, but also the most populous, home to around 23 million people. Before we move on with the video, I've got a tip for anyone interested in meeting and chatting with women from other countries. I've left a link in the pinned comment for a reliable website that only allows profiles of real people. Click on the link in the pinned comment to start meeting new people. While not a traditional tourist destination for many, those who decide to visit Bangladesh may encounter some hurdles, including the country's susceptibility to natural disasters like earthquakes and floods. Being in Bangladesh during one of these events can be an intimidating experience, especially considering the significant impact such catastrophes have on local communities. Even before Bangladesh emerged as an independent society, Indian empires were already facing their decline. Since the 12th century, the region was deeply influenced by Islam, but never quite managed to detach completely from neighboring India. During the 20th century especially, Bangladesh stood out for having a predominantly Muslim population in the east, while the western part was mostly inhabited by Indians. This division persisted until 1991, a period marked by significant governance issues in the country. Over the past 30 years, Bangladesh has struggled to overcome these challenges, with ongoing efforts for reunification and reconstruction. However, overpopulation has been a considerable obstacle to progress. Today, Bengali is the country's official language, and while English is spoken, it's less common on the streets, and many who speak it have a distinct accent that might pose a communication challenge for visitors. In official communication and business dealings, citizens of Bangladesh often opt for English over their local language. With this backdrop, we can delve a little deeper into the country's reality. Bangladesh ranks among the poorest nations in the world. The daily income of much of the population doesn't exceed $5, and it's easy to see the simplicity with which many work. The local minimum wage hovers around $95 per month, positioning the country as one with the most affordable labor globally. This characteristic attracts numerous corporations and international companies seeking to reduce costs. For many prestigious international brands, setting up factories in places with lower tax burdens and lower labor costs is a strategy already adopted. Thus, it's not uncommon to find products manufactured in Bangladesh being sold in world-renowned stores. Salaries in Bangladesh are substantially lower than those in the United States, allowing the wages of a single American worker to cover the pay of 10 to 15 Bangladeshis. When strolling through Dhaka, the country's capital, it's common to see men and women carrying heavy objects on their heads. Due to the lack of vehicles, this practice becomes a necessity for transporting goods. Additionally, you can notice a tangle of cables stretched along the streets, indicative of possibly poor telecommunications infrastructure. This scene transports any observer to a time that seems to be about half a century behind, reflecting the country's infrastructural deficiencies. The streets of Bangladesh, always bustling with vehicles and activity, resemble the organized chaos of countries like Vietnam and India. The absence of sidewalks or underground passages significantly increases the risk for pedestrians, who need to stay alert to avoid accidents with motorcycles or cars. Walking the streets of Bangladesh can be a challenging experience. Pedestrians have to deal with constant traffic risks, which include an uninterrupted symphony of honking horns. Often the traffic is chaotic, with vehicles coming from all directions at intersections lacking traffic lights. If you're noise sensitive, brace yourself. The incessant sound of honking can be a real source of stress, even on quieter roads. As for public transportation, it's predominantly served by buses that are between 20 and 30 years old. These vehicles typically offer little comfort with their uncomfortable seats and are often overcrowded. In addition to buses, the country has adapted bicycles to function as taxis. These vehicles, powered solely by human effort, lack engines, providing an alternative mode of transportation, albeit an exhausting one. Taxi cyclists, mostly slender men, are a common sight throughout the country, with estimates indicating the existence of around 30 million bicycles. These professionals, who often carry additional passengers, face hard and uncomfortable work. This contributes to an environment where squares become scenes of conflicts between cyclists or heated arguments among street vendors. Life in this context is full of challenges, where overcrowding and chaos are almost constant, especially at urban intersections and markets in Bangladesh, where street vendors are prevalent. Besides being popular spots for food purchases, there are frequent concerns about hygiene in these spaces, adding another layer of complexity to daily life in these areas. While traveling through Bangladesh, you might notice that many stalls and their surroundings don't look very clean. This sight may make you, as a traveler, think twice before eating or drinking anything in the country, fearing health issues. Additionally, it's important to consider that the literacy rate is low here, with only 3 out of 10 people able to read and write. This educational deficiency reflects in a generally low cultural level. Cities face significant challenges such as waste accumulation and high pollution. The common practice of spitting on the streets also contributes to this discouraging scenario. Despite these challenges, it's essential to maintain an attitude of gratitude for the country that welcomes you. Another aspect that may catch your attention while in Bangladesh is how people may look at you, regardless of your gender. This attention can be constant, and it may feel like you're always being watched. This behavior goes beyond sexual connotations, and it might even suggest that some might be interested in taking advantage of you, whether financially or in other ways. Before we move on with the video, I've got a tip for anyone interested in meeting and chatting with women from other countries. I've left a link in the pinned comment for a reliable website that only allows profiles of real people. Click on the link in the pinned comment to start meeting new people. When visiting a country where tourism is intense, it's natural to attract curious looks. However, it's wise to exercise caution, even when interacting with seemingly trustworthy tour guides. In places where the cost of living is low and some people work for minimal amounts, like $3 a day, it's not uncommon for them to try to take advantage of visitors, either directly or indirectly. That's why it's essential to stay vigilant when shopping or negotiating services. If you appear to be a tourist, be prepared to be charged much more than usual for products or services. This happens because vendors assume you're not familiar with local prices. An example of this is restaurants where, instead of fixed menus, many have open kitchens where you can choose directly what you want to eat. It's common for prices to be inflated once they reveal the cost of meals to you, a frequent practice aimed at profiting from tourists' unfamiliarity with the local market. When visiting Bangladesh, even if just for a short while, there's plenty to explore. The country is filled with temples and museums showcasing the architecture of past empires and civilizations. However, it's worth mentioning that there's usually an entry fee for these places, and often tourists might end up paying more than local residents. For a unique experience, visitors can enjoy boat rides along the rivers, an experience reminiscent of the famous gondola rides in Venice. These rides are offered by locals themselves, who use their boats to transport tourists, creating a source of income. Although Bangladesh allows prostitution, the country has strict social norms prohibiting the consumption of alcohol. Even though it's not an expensive product, alcohol is rare and its sale isn't legal in stores, making it almost invisible in daily life. Affordability is one of the advantages of visiting Bangladesh. You can have a satisfying meal for about $3, and accommodation is also quite affordable. Hotel and hostel prices range from $10 to $30 per night, while a one-bedroom apartment in the city center can be rented for approximately $100 per month. If you're thinking about living outside the center of Bangladesh, you'll be surprised by the affordable rental prices. A one-bedroom apartment can cost as little as $70 per month. Daily life in the country is also economical, reflected in items like chicken breast, which averages around $3 per kilogram. Depending on your lifestyle, monthly grocery shopping costs can range between $50 and $150. Living in Bangladesh can be quite economically advantageous. Furthermore, local hospitality is warm and welcoming. It's not uncommon for residents to gather around foreign visitors, greeting them warmly and asking to take photos, making them feel welcomed and appreciated. In recent years, Bangladesh has emerged as one of the world's fastest-growing economies. Economists point out that the country is making good use of its large population, not following a trajectory of decline, but rather one of sustained growth. Many well-educated citizens of the country share this optimism and often express national pride when interacting with tourists. However, it's important to recognize that despite these economic advances, many of Bangladesh's 169 million inhabitants still face significant daily challenges. It's estimated that around 5 million people in the country are homeless and live in extremely dire conditions. Rehabilitating these individuals so they can actively contribute to society represents a significant challenge. Many, even those with a roof over their heads, reside in deplorable conditions, in makeshift settlements that can't even be classified as slums, without access to basic services like toilets or showers. These people often rely on food found on the streets or discarded in markets to eat, and these scarce resources are also shared with their children. Those lacking financial resources often resort to risky means of transportation, such as climbing onto moving trains, clinging to them, or entering through windows. In many places, the situation is so severe that it seems like the country is recovering from a war. It's interesting to note that in Bangladesh, a small group of people enjoys a significantly higher standard of living compared to the average citizen. It seems that a restricted elite disproportionately benefits from the country's wealth, while the vast majority face adverse conditions. Bangladesh is often cited as one of the most challenging places to live, mainly due to its high population density and extreme poverty, factors that complicate the country's sustainable development. Thanks for sticking around until here. Don't forget to leave your like and comment if you'd be interested in visiting Bangladesh.